There's something happening inside you right now, even as you listen to these words. Something so constant, so familiar, that you rarely stop to notice it. A silent companion, a narrator, whispering thoughts, drawing conclusions, filling in gaps when reality doesn't give you enough answers. It's been with you for as long as you've been alive. And here's the difficult truth. Most of what it tells you isn't accurate. This inner commentator, your mind, isn't malicious. It isn't out to destroy you, but it isn't committed to truth either. It's committed to survival. Its priority is to protect, to predict, to keep you one step ahead of perceived threats, whether those threats are real or just imagined. And that means it's constantly spinning stories, dressing up assumptions as facts, making meaning where none exists. And you believe it, almost every time. Think about the last time someone didn't respond to your message. What did your mind tell you? Maybe it said, "They're ignoring me," or "I must have upset them." Maybe it whispered something harsher, "They don't care about me anymore." But what if none of that was true? What if they were just busy? What if their phone died? What if life got in the way? The reality was simple. A message went unanswered, but your brain couldn't stand the silence. It couldn't bear the uncertainty. So it wrote a story, a detailed script about rejection, about your worth, about your place in that relationship. That's what the mind does. It fills the void of not knowing with fiction. And the cruel part is, it doesn't feel like fiction. It feels real. This is happening to you constantly. You don't notice because the stories are so seamless, so convincing, that they blend into your perception of reality itself. Your mind isn't a camera, faithfully recording events as they happen. It's a novelist, editing, embellishing, interpreting, turning raw experience into a narrative. And you, the listener, rarely stop to question it. You might wonder, why would my brain do this to me? Why would it twist facts, assume the worst, create stress where none exists? The answer goes back thousands of years. Your ancestors lived in a world filled with danger. A rustle in the bushes could mean a predator. A shadow on the horizon could mean an enemy. In that environment, it was safer to assume the worst. If you imagined danger that wasn't there, no harm done. But if you missed the real threat, you might not survive to pass on your genes. So your brain evolved to err on the side of fear, to imagine threats, to fill in uncertainty with cautionary tales, and that same mechanism is alive in you today. The difference is, the predators aren't lurking in the bushes anymore. Their emails left unanswered, meetings scheduled for tomorrow, conversations you haven't had yet. Your brain still reacts as though survival is at stake, spinning catastrophic stories about events that are, at worst, mildly inconvenient. This is why you worry endlessly about things that never happen, why you replay conversations, imagining what you should have said, or what the other person really meant, why you wake up at night rehearsing scenarios in your head, most of which will never occur. Your brain isn't trying to torture you, it's trying to protect you, but the protection is outdated. It's running old software in a new world. Here's where the real danger lies. These mental stories don't just pass through you. You build your life around them. You make choices based on assumptions your brain invented. You avoid opportunities because your mind convinced you you'll fail. You withdraw from people because your thoughts whispered that rejection is inevitable. You doubt yourself because the inner narrator declared you're not capable. And because the stories feel so real, you don't question them. You rarely pause to ask, is this actually true? Instead, you react as though it is. You change your behavior, your relationships, your decisions, all to accommodate something that never existed outside your imagination. The harshest lies your mind tells aren't about the world. They're about you. The thought that you're not enough, that you'll never succeed, that you don't deserve happiness. These aren't facts. They're narratives stitched together from past pain, societal messages, and random neurological activity. They feel solid because they're repeated so often. But repetition isn't truth. This is the first shift you need to make if you want freedom from the grip of your thoughts. Thoughts are not facts. Just because something appears in your mind doesn't mean it deserves your belief. Consider your dreams. When you're asleep, the strangest scenarios unfold. You fly without wings. You speak to people who no longer exist. You watch impossible landscapes transform in seconds. And in the dream, it all feels real. You don't question it until you wake up. Then you see it clearly for what it was. Mental construction. Convincing in the moment, but not real. Your waking thoughts are similar. They feel real as they unfold. They trigger genuine emotions. They shape how you interpret events. But most of them are just dreams you're having with your eyes open. You haven't learned to wake up from them yet. Imagine for a moment that someone waves at you across the street. Your brain might instantly tell you, they must be happy to see me. That's one story. But another version might whisper, they were actually waving at someone else. Or, they're mocking me. The same event, different narratives. And the narrative you choose determines your emotional reality. Now multiply that by the thousands of moments you experience daily. Your mind assigns meaning to everything. Tone of voice, facial expressions, delays, silence, outcomes. Each meaning becomes part of your story about the world and yourself. Over time, those stories solidify into beliefs, and those beliefs become the lens through which you experience life. This is why two people can go through the same event and walk away with completely different perspectives. It wasn't the event itself that shaped them. It was the story their mind wrote about it. Most people never question the narrator in their head. They live as though the voice is reporting reality, not realizing it's often just commentary, speculation, or pure fiction. This is why you might catch yourself rehearsing entire conversations that never happen, or suffering over imagined futures that never arrive, or replaying mistakes that no one else remembers. The narrator keeps the story alive long after the moment has passed, making you relive pain again and again, long after reality has moved on. And here's the most insidious part. You think that voice is you. You identify with it so deeply that when it says, "I'm not good enough," you don't hear it as a thought. You hear it as truth. You hear it as yourself. But you are not the voice. You are the awareness hearing the voice. You are the observer of the narration, not the narration itself. So how do you free yourself from the grip of these mental stories? The first step isn't to silence your mind or replace negative thoughts with positive ones. That's just another layer of story. The first step is recognition. When a thought arises, notice it. Instead of automatically believing it, pause. Ask yourself, is this a fact? Or is this a story my mind is telling me? That simple act of questioning creates space. It reminds you that you have a choice. You don't have to accept every thought as truth. You can observe it, consider it, and let it pass without letting it dictate your reality. Think of it like watching clouds move across the sky. The clouds come and go. Some are light, some are heavy, some block the sun for a while, but none of them define the sky itself. Your thoughts are the same. They're passing phenomena. They don't define who you are. This is the heart of transformation, moving from being lost inside the stories to observing them from the outside. When you do this, thoughts lose their grip. They become suggestions instead of commands, possibilities instead of certainties. You'll still have self-critical thoughts. You'll still imagine worst-case scenarios, but they won't control you the same way. You'll see them for what they are: protective mechanisms, outdated scripts, echoes of past conditioning. And once you see them, they lose their power. It's like waking up from a dream. The dream might still linger in your memory, but it no longer dictates how you live your day. This doesn't mean your mind becomes useless. The narrator still has value. It helps you plan, remember, analyze, but it's no longer the unquestioned authority on truth. It becomes one voice among many. When you stop letting the mind dominate your reality, something remarkable happens. You begin to experience life directly, without constant commentary. A moment of silence becomes just silence, not a story about loneliness. A delay becomes just a delay, not a story about rejection. An uncertain future becomes just uncertain, not a guaranteed disaster. You begin to live in what's actually happening, instead of living in the stories about what might be happening. The real freedom isn't in controlling your thoughts. It's in no longer being controlled by them. It's the difference between being swept away by a rushing river and standing on the bank, watching the water flow. When you catch your mind telling a story about your past, your future, your worth, you can pause and ask, is this reality or just a narrative? That pause is everything. It's the space where freedom begins. And once you've seen this pattern, once you recognize the mind for what it is, you can never fully unsee it. The spell is broken. The magician's trick is revealed. The stories may still come, but you'll never confuse them with reality in quite the same way again. This doesn't mean life becomes perfect. Challenges still come, pain still happens, but you stop adding unnecessary suffering on top of it. You stop living in a fictional world your mind creates. You start inhabiting the reality that actually exists. And in that space, you find something your mind could never invent: peace. Not the peace of everything being perfect, but the peace of no longer being at war with your own thoughts.